Ah, The Last Jedi. The movie that's been talked about perhaps more than any other Star Wars movie. To say that it is divisive would be the understatement of the century. Here's a visual representation of the fan base splitting after watching this film. Now, I've been thinking a lot about this movie, like pretty much nonstop since it came out, and after much deliberation, I've decided that if you changed one scene, it would fix a lot of the problems people have with the movie. The biggest complaint I hear about the movie is Luke's story. He's a grouchy old failure who let his followers get slaughtered and nearly killed his nephew for having some bad dreams. Here's the pivotal flashback of that.
I sensed it building in him. I'd seen it in moments during his training. And I was left with shame and with consequence.
Now, I don't think having Kylo go all Anakin on his fellow Padawans is the problem. I think the problem with this part of the story is that it tells us what happens and it doesn't show us. And a film should always show us rather than just tell us. I mean, that's why they call it show and tell, right? Okay, that was dumb. But a film should always show rather than tell, especially for such a pivotal turning point in the galaxy. The flashback should have been different, and if I was the writer on this film, I would have had it look something like this. Luke has a Jedi temple filled with followers. We see glimpses of the temple, but here you would see it in a panoramic. It's a beautiful temple. Inside, Luke is shown teaching a class full of young Padawans, telling them to reach out, feel the force surrounding them and connecting them. Two of the kids smile at each other and giggle, and Luke says, "Focus," but he smiles with them. From this, we have an image of what's at stake. We know Kylo is coming for these kids, and we know that Luke cares about them, maybe even like his own children. Their meditation is interrupted suddenly by a young man who comes running into the temple out of breath. "Master," he says. The scene cuts to Ben, who is surrounded by two other Padawans. All three have lightsabers, and it's clear this is a hostile situation. "What, too scared to fight me alone, Ezer?" Ben says, taunting one of them. "We both know you don't fight fair," he replies. "Master Skywalker may not see what you've been up to, but we do," the other one says. "What have I been up to?" Ben replies. "I know what you did to my brother was no accident. His head's still not right. And I know it was something you did," Ezer says. Kylo just smirks and takes a fighting stance, igniting his lightsaber. We see the other two ignite their lightsabers, and a battle ensues. Now, bear in mind that this would be the only real lightsaber battle of the movie, in terms of lightsabers actually, connecting. Kylo is clearly dominating the fight. This fight would be a good parallel of Count Dooku versus Anakin and Obi-Wan. Perhaps these fighters aren't nearly as skilled, but it would still be super entertaining. Eventually, Ben would kick one of them to the side and focus on the other one. He'd easily outduel this Padawan and throw him into a rock wall, knocking him out. The other Padawan, Ezer, would rise and begin to battle Ben alone. You can tell Ben is a little tired at this point after fighting both. They battle for a little, evenly matched. Ezer tries a final desperate attack and Ben counters it, until Ben's lightsaber is suddenly sliced in half. Ezer tries to deal a final blow, but Ben catches him with the force, choking him, lifting him off the ground. Ezer's eyes bulge as he's suspended, gasping for air. Then suddenly Ben's connection to the force is cut. Ben looks confused as Ezer's on the ground coughing, but then he straightens and turns to see Luke. "Ezer, help Nelson leave. Go to the temple and wait for me," Luke says. "Master, Ben is evil. Surely you must—" "Enough!" Luke shouts. "Go to the temple and wait for me. We will talk then." They leave, and Ben and Luke stare at each other. "Ben, what's going on?" "They attacked me," Ben says, trying to defend himself. "I know they planned an attack. Caesar told me. But what is going on with you?" "Can I not defend myself?" Ben replies. "Ben, I'm not blind. I can sense the turmoil inside of you. What is going on? How can I help you?" Luke says. Ben walks close to his uncle. "I'm fine. I just want to be alone." "Ben," Luke says. Ben ignores him and walks away, as Luke sighs heavily. The scene cuts to Luke, with Nels and Ezer, the Padawans who attacked Ben. "What on earth were you doing?" Luke says. "Sir, there's something not right with Ben," Ezer says. "You may refuse to see it, but it's all we can see. Look at my brother. You know Ben did something to him. Something is wrong." Luke considers him. "I trust Ben. He is a good person." "You are blinded by your love of your nephew," Ezer says. "What do you think he's doing in his time alone? Check his room. You'll see." Ezer says. "I trust Ben," Luke says, "and that's final. Now go to your huts. Leave your sabers." Luke says this last bit almost as an afterthought. Ezer and Nels begrudgingly put their sabers on a table and leave the temple. Luke stares after them. The scene cuts to that night. Luke is pacing back and forth thinking. Eventually you see him come to a decision, and he leaves the temple. You see him sneak into Ben's hut. You see Ben fast asleep on the ground as Luke silently starts looking through his items. This would look extremely similar to The Last Jedi when Luke taps into Ben's mind, only this time he's not going to tap into his mind, he's going to be looking through his things. Not seeing anything particularly disturbing, he turns to leave, and he senses something, and he turns to look at a small chest. He walks to it, and we see him use the Force to silently open the lid, and inside we see Kylo Ren's lightsaber. Luke looks at it shocked, and then he grabs it. Now this next part is going to tie really well into The Force Awakens, and the movies are going to mirror each other in this way. Much like how Rey has a vision when touching Anakin's lightsaber, Luke will fall into a similar vision, only he won't look so shocked. In Rey's vision, she has to jump to avoid people and she's scared when she sees them. We see Luke just considering these items. He never looks scared, and he realizes it's a vision. He seems comfortable in it, but he's still startled by it. He sees a vision similar to Rey's, but it's just slightly different. He hears himself yell, "No!" again, and sees himself next to R2. But then it cuts to Kylo, walking into one of the children's huts, and he ignites his red saber, paralleling the scene where Anakin ignites his in the Jedi Temple. It then cuts to Luke and Kylo fighting, and Luke killing him in revenge. The vision shows other evils, and then it ends. Luke breathes heavily as he stares down at Kylo. He sees the children and he hears their voices one last time, and he ignites the red saber. But then he stares at his mechanical hand, much like in the movie, seeing the Vader inside of himself. Now this scene is going to be pretty much similar to The Last Jedi from this point on. Kylo brings down the ceiling as Luke shouts, "Ben, no!" And it cuts back to Luke and Rey. I picture Rey and Luke staring at one another in the rain after Luke finishes his flashback. I wanted to stop him. I wanted to save my kids. But how could I? If I couldn't give up on my father, how could I give up on Ben? You said you saw yourself ending Kylo, Rey says. Not all Force visions come true. They're just possible futures. I knew if I pursued Kylo, I could have put an end to him. But how could I? The temple was gone, and so was he. And I saw something else in the vision. What? Asks Rey, her face expectant. I saw you, Luke says. Now, most of the movie could sit very comfortably with this rewrite. It would have one minor change. Rather than Luke being on the island because he wants to die and he's an unhappy grouch, he would be on the island because he's waiting for Rey. Because he knew that there was another Jedi to train. Because he knew someone else had to face Kylo. Or better yet, he knew someone else might be able to bring him back. But he knew that it wasn't him. He knew that if he went, he'd have to kill his nephew. But if someone else went, there might be a return. What do you think? Do you like this change? Do you not really like it? Now, real quick, I just wanted to end and say, I don't think I'm a better storyteller than Rian Johnson, and I definitely couldn't make a film to the caliber that he could. He's an extremely talented writer and director, and I actually think he's one of the better filmmakers of our time. I just think this one change would have worked really well. Anyway, actually I have another change too. We should have replaced Holdo with Akbar.
It's a trap!
Okay, bye.